the latest development in the situation at GB News is that Ofcom has launched a formal investigation, and it's all surrounding Laurence Fox's misogynist and sexist comments about journalist Ava Santina Evans on GB News. Now, the regulator has received more than 7,300 complaints, with one Tory MP calling for the channel, the whole channel itself, to be shut down.
Well, Michelle Dewberry, who presents a show on GB News, joins us now. Michelle, thank you for coming in this morning.
Problem.
I wonder, firstly, I mean, you work for GB News, you have a show on GB News, which I'm sure you're very proud of. I wonder how you felt when you saw what had happened on the channel that you're a part of.
Yes, well, I work on GB News, but I'm also a GB News viewer. I watch a lot of it, so I was actually watching that live at home with my partner, and when it happened, I put my head in my hands, and I was just like, oh, please, no. Like, come on now. You know, you've just described it well. It was sexist, it was misogynistic, it was embarrassing. I knew that the very next day there would be this monumental backlash, and rightly so. I don't think that is representative of the channel more broadly. Very swift action has been taken, as you've also just mentioned, and now it seems that Laurence himself has kind of caught on to the fact that that's not OK. He himself, as you just said, has apologised.
Yesterday, there were quite a lot of the GB News presenters, the female GB News presenters, that had asked specifically to be assured that Laurence Fox wouldn't be coming back on the channel, because, of course, he had his own show as well, didn't he, on the channel. Were you one of them? Did you contact the bosses and say, what on earth has happened? Because we know that Laurence Fox had spoken to the producers. They knew what he was going to say. They knew the tone of what he was going to do. And we've seen Laurence Fox, and we know how outspoken he is, you know, about all those subjects.
Yeah, so no, I haven't contacted bosses and tried to influence the outcome of an investigation. I wouldn't do that under any circumstances.
Or to seek reassurances that that is not the sort of thing they're going to want on the channel. Well,
I don't need to seek their reassurances, because I already know that that is not the sort of thing that the channel is about. I know. I've worked there since the day it was first broadcast. I know that that is not what this channel is about. I don't need to go to management to get that reassurance from them. It's demonstrated. Management have demonstrated that's not who we are by immediately taking action.
So do you think he will be sacked as he believes he will be?
I don't know. I'm not one of these people. I don't jump on bandwagons and preempt the outcomes of investigations, whatever the subject, whichever the channel. That's not my personal style. There's an investigation going on. You talk about producers knowing and not knowing. I don't know what they knew. I wasn't there. It's for the management to make the decision, and they will make the decision that I'm sure is right. But look, we're a good, decent channel. We exist to serve the people that I believe were not being represented by broadcast media as it exists today.
OK, who are those people?
Well, we heard a comment, for example, and you'll be familiar with it by now, from Adam Bolton, and he was saying that GB News serves to destroy the delicate broadcast ecology. I mean, I don't know, I hear things like that. It's almost like that there is a permitted closed shop of people and opinions and views and stations. And
that was a prime-time show on your channel, one of the highest rating shows that you have on your channel, that had that interview where the host did absolutely nothing to stop those comments that...
Yeah, but we all agree that's wrong. You're preaching to the converted. I think that was appalling. I watched it when it happened. I had my head in my hands. We're better than that. That is not who GB News is. They've taken that action. Good for them for taking that action. That demonstrates the fact that they suspended those people like this, demonstrates we don't tolerate that. That's not who this channel is.
OK, so I suppose what people are getting at when, and we've had Tory MPs saying the whole channel should be shut down, is that you might be very against that, but GB News has presented itself as the sort of bastion of free speech, and that people should be allowed to say it like it is. When you're in that situation, unless everybody involved is very clear of the lines, things like that are going to happen.
Well, no, I would say that is very much the exception, not the rule. I mean, we broadcast, something like 18 hours a day of live television. We broadcast 15,000 hours of live television, there or thereabouts, since we've launched. That is the exception, and I maintain that. That is not the rule. That is not who GB News are.
Ian, as a broadcaster that sort of has worked in the world of broadcast for many, many years, the advent of GB News coming in, as Michelle's saying, we were there to sort of disrupt, to offer an alternative perspective to some of the other media outlets out there. Do you understand why people are calling, like Adam Bolton is calling for it to be closed down?
I think calling a broadcaster calling for another broadcaster to be closed down, I think that's quite dodgy territory, if I'm honest. Viewers in the end decide whether a broadcaster is going to succeed, and to give GB News credit, I mean, they do beat Sky News and the BBC News channel at some points during the day, which is an achievement. But I think it's slightly ironic that a channel that bills itself the home of free speech, first of all, cancels Guito Harry when he decided to take the knee on camera, and then might have to cancel, I mean, who knows what's going to happen in this investigation, but might have to cancel 2 of its leading names.
Yeah, how does that sit with
it's
you?
inevitable.
How does that sit with you, Michelle?
If you're going to be a controversial channel, these things are going to happen.
Yeah, but what I would say to that is we are provocative. We do tackle issues and things that a lot of people would shy away from. We bring
like what? What do I shy away from that you talk about?
Well, I'm not talking about you per se. I'm talking about the general broadcasting landscape. If there wasn't a need for GB News, people are not... They don't just sit there saying, I'm really bored. Well, I would argue that actually there was a lot of topics that were not covered properly. So, for example, if we rewind, things like grooming gangs that were happening up and down this country, people absolutely shied away from discussing that in great length at the time. I would talk about the things like...
Sorry, you mean... I mean, we've discussed grooming gangs extensively, as much as one can for the hour of day that we're doing it on this programme. So we've had victims of grooming gangs, we've had people form all sides of that debate on.
And that's
what are you talking about then? So you cited an example which we've also covered.
Well, I'll give you another example. This country voted Brexit. The majority of people voted Brexit. I've worked in current affairs commentary now for well over a decade. As a Brexiteer, I was always, without exception pretty much, the only Brexiteer on the panels when we was discussing.
Ian's on every single
week. But this is now. I'm talking about then. I'm talking about...
He was on then.
How long have you been with us?
I'm talking...
6 years.
Right, but how many times, if you're a Brexiteer, how many times were you the minority voice on the panels?
That is a point. I mean, I remember doing a Newsnight panel where they wanted me and 3 Remainers. And I said, well, I can look after myself on these panels, but I'm sorry, if you think that is due impartiality...
You're worth
got another thing coming. Yeah. You look at Newsnight the other night where they were talking about this subject, and they had 3 guests, one of which was a Tory MP, Adam Bolton, and the former editor of The Sun, David Yellen, all having exactly the same opinion. Now, if that had been on GB News, they would have been hauled over the coals for that.
You were just laughing at that. You think that's funny when I'm just describing that there is one Brexiteer in a panel. There was chuckling going on.
Don't have a go at me, Michelle.
I'm not having a go at you.
Yes,
I'm just saying that you were just sitting there laughing when I'm describing that there's one Brexiteer on a panel within a debate.
Michelle, you're having a go at me. What I was going to say was there are plenty of people who share my view who equally believe that the BBC didn't provide proper balance about the arguments around Brexit, are concerned about the fact that they haven't always provided proper balance around climate change, sometimes don't think that this programme covers stories that we want to. I'm not arguing that GB News should go, by the way, before you start having...
You've appeared on it.
Exactly, I've appeared on it before you start having a go at me. And
I think the way you... We're having a debate. A debate is a two-way back and forth.
You weren't having a debate. You said I was laughing about something.
Well, I felt that you was, and if you wasn't laughing, well, then I will take that back. I absolutely
So what's your actual point, apart from the fact that...
My actual point, as I've clearly articulated, is that GB News was born from a need that there was a huge amount of the general public that were not served in broadcast media. Until GB News came along and actually started reflecting the views of the majority of this country, there was a need for it. Hence, for example, you say about viewing figures. My show, for example, 6 o'clock news slot, that time frame is very competitive. On the most recent figures on Wednesday, I got 2.5 times the audience of Sky News. So there is a lot of people that want to have the conversation.
So look, Michelle,
quite rightly, you're on here on a mainstream programme talking about your TV station.
Rather you were on here talking about it in a positive light. It's not wonderful because the reason you're on talking about it is to defend the channel because of what was on.
Well, I'm
on that,
talking about it in a positive light.
But everybody has condemned, and rightly so, because we had Ava on yesterday. She is now facing all sorts of abuse she was not involved in that interview. She's getting abuse now, told to watch her back because of stuff that was aired on GB.
Yeah, and that's awful.
Yeah. So there's nothing wonderful about being here. I think we appreciate you coming in, though, Michelle, and being offered the opinion.
Can I just say,
I'm really sorry,
I want to say really quickly on abuse. I don't condone online abuse towards anyone. We need to learn to respectfully disagree and not start abusing people online.
We couldn't agree more. Thank you for coming in.
There you go. We agree to disagree. We end on an agreement.
OK. Thank you very much, Vidal. Thank you very much.
Ian and Jackie, don't cross Jackie.
No.
That's how
Never would, never have.
Cheap crack.
Too scared.